A leading cyber expert, David Chalk, says the so-called smart grid is vulnerable to hackers, and the entire power grid could be at risk of being taken down by a cyber attack. The FBI warns that insiders and individuals with a moderate level of computer knowledge are likely able to compromise meters with low-cost tools. David Chalk joins me now. David, good morning.
Hello, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing very well. But the first question that comes to my mind is what would those hackers do? What risk do they pose to me?
Well, we can look at it at two levels. There's really four key factors regarding the grid that people need to know about. One, the obvious concern that is talked about a lot is electromagnetic radiation, which is not really what we're talking about today, but I'm happy to discuss it. Then there's the data surveillance and collection, will be number two. The security of the information they collect about you, number three. And then the grid security itself. That's really the question you're asking me. And when it comes to grid security, what we're talking about is the ability for a hacker, a rogue, or a nation state, for example, which people are most concerned, or the government is most concerned about, that could bring the entire grid down. You see, with the connectivity now, the grid meaning a mesh, everything's interconnected, be it the nuclear reactor, the coal plants, the switching systems, the relays that transfer electricity to our house. It is all accessible once you are inside. That can be shut down. There's an expert in the U.S., Richard A. Clarke, who's written a book, Cyber War, and he's a former advisor to presidents, and he states, as I do, within 3 years, and again, not to be alarmist, but this is the reality of it, and this is the problem we have with people saying there's nothing to worry about, that the entire grid will probably come down within 3 years. It is hackable, and it can be taken down.
Now, who would do that and why?
Well, there's many reasons why. I mean, the worst of all is a nation-state attack, and that would be a foreign nation or some group interested in damaging a country, whether it be the United States, Canada, or any smaller country. You see, when the power goes off, the power is more than just electricity. It also runs our hospitals, it runs our water treatment, it runs our sewers, it runs the gas pumping, and it also runs the emergency response. So the simple fact today that a large-scale strike is very difficult to do, cutting the power is almost as bad as a nuclear attack. And on that note, you know, anything I say, this is the important thing today, you can research it online, but the U.S. Congress is about to announce, if they haven't already, that they believe that the downing of the power grid is now more of an issue than terrorism. And you've got to understand that when we talk about terrorism, we're talking about some pretty nasty things. Congress has already passed a bill in the U.S. that allows the United States, something they've never been able to do, be a first-strike nation on nuclear attack, that if the power grid is threatened and taken down by a nation state, they now have congressional authority to invoke a nuclear strike back. Now, if you're asking me how concerned should we be or can they do it, you don't get in front of Congress and ask for nuclear attack authority if you know that you can protect the grid 100%.
Now, I understand that you're challenging BC Hydro to show you a smart meter that is hack-proof, and you claim that you can show that it's hackable. Has Hydro responded?
No, no one will. I'm going to give you credit, Bill. In fact, you know, a press release went out to more than 1,000 people, and not a single newspaper, magazine, or anyone even responded other than CKNW and your producer. But it isn't so much just BC Hydro. You know, all of the hydro companies use meters by a number of manufacturers. Itron is the one BC Hydro uses. So living in British Columbia, many people don't realize that British Columbia is the eye of the world right now. The coalitions in British Columbia that really are knowledgeable about the concerns on the grid are all over the web. When you do a search on downing of the grid or cyber intrusion or smart grid destruction, British Columbia will come up in everything. And BC Hydro, with the way they've rolled this out on a fairly hardline program, have literally become the eye of the storm. So my challenge goes out to any company, any agency, any power company, but certainly BC Hydro, is you tell me where you think you're protected, and I will show you 100% you're not. I'm not doing it to prove them wrong. I'm doing it to inform people to say, look, we can't just roll over. Most people, and Hydro will say that only 2% or more are concerned about the grid. The reason is, Bill, and you know it because you and I have talked in the past, most people don't understand technology. They don't know the fundamentals of how computers are protected. If they did, 98% would reject having a smart meter on their house because it becomes a vulnerability point, not only for their information, but also access to the Internet.
But most of the pushback I have heard in the past few months around the power, the smart meters, has been people being concerned about the health risk that they think it presents, others concerned about the privacy aspect that they think it creates, others, and many, many more in recent weeks, complaining that they've had a serious spike in their energy costs since getting a smart meter installed. You're talking about something much, much bigger than any of that. But before you respond to that, do you consider those other concerns to be legitimate?
Oh, 100%. But, you know, Bill, the term the elephant in the room, let's get real. This one is so big it can't be ignored. And what I would say is happening, not just with Hydro, with all the utility companies, is we're being led down a box canyon. If you knew that there was a 100% factor, that is, that it can be proved that you cannot secure an infrastructure, wouldn't you not bring that one up and debate all the others that are nebulous, conjecture, where there's no absolutes, like how bad is the electromagnetic radiation, how good is the security? But rather than talking about the actual grid protection, which I'm bringing up, this is the elephant in the room, is that very few people understand how it works, and I do. So I thought it was time I come forward and make it clear, not only to British Columbia, but hopefully this goes out to Canada, the United States, and the world. I challenge anyone to bring me any technology on anything forward, and I'll prove 100%. Now, if BC Hydro, for example, refutes this or rebuttals and says they have experts who are working on it, or they have people that think they can keep the minor hackers out or just the beginners, it doesn't matter. If I have a surgeon operating on me, he better be good. A pharmaceutical company better sign off on the safety and security of that product. An engineer on a bridge, an air traffic controller, they put their lives on the line and they sign off to what they do. In the computer industry, there is no regulation for security. Therefore, when a smart meter goes on your house or when you're connected to the Internet in any way, shape, or form, there's no contract saying that you are safe. All I'm saying is if Hydro or any organization that is taking our information and will have it vulnerable, I'm asking put it in writing. So I say to the 98% of British Columbians or anyone in the world that believes they are okay, why not ask to have it in writing the same way an aircraft mechanic must put his signature on the line before that 747 takes off. And the first thing you will hear is we can't do that. And the reason they can't do it is we all know that an infrastructure of computers cannot be protected. And when we're vacuuming up volumes of information that you and I can discuss in a minute, the information they'll get, then it's about time we put a line in the sand and said, okay, you can't protect it, and until you can, you aren't taking this information. Maybe we'll never let them have it. We have rights, but the point is you're not taking it until you prove to me that you can protect it.
Talking with David Chalk, and after the 9:30 news, we will be talking with two people who are contracted by BC Hydro to advise and consult on the very issues we're talking about. We'll get their response to David Chalk. Talking with the leading technology and cyber expert David Chalk, and he's expressing serious concerns about the security of smart meters, not just the security for your sake, but the security for the entire grid, the entire system. And I welcome your calls to him. BC Hydro says smart meter data is protected through a specially designed communications protocol that controls access using security certificates and scrambles data using encryption. David, what do you say to that?